Hello and welcome to The Quest for the Best, a show where I talk about stuff I've been watching lately, good or bad. In this video I'm going to be talking about Soul, Wolfwalkers, Eurovision, and Another Round. Check the timecodes if you want to jump around to anything in particular. I won't be spoiling anything unless specifically stated, so don't worry. Okay, let's start with Disney Pixar's Soul, their latest feature released on Christmas Day on Disney+. And I really didn't know what to think of this from the trailers. It really felt like it could go either way for me, but the execution on these pretty introspective, high-level themes about like appreciating life and existentialism and what we believe our purpose to be and how we're supposed to balance our passions with just normal life and the grind of everything. It's a lot for a kids movie to take on, and I think considering that it does an extremely good job. I mean, I think on a visual level the film's pretty impeccable. There's nothing really you can point out as being poorly thought through or negative in my opinion. All the stuff set in New York was my personal favorite. The lighting of it, the way they capture the texture of everything, the hair, the skin, they've clearly nailed a lot of the humanistic kind of stuff they need to with the scenes with the music being played. Obviously the main character's a musician who's kind of having a midlife crisis. He's not where he wants to be in his life, and I really was expecting something more simplistic because I saw that the main character was a musician, and I thought this was going to be more of a him fighting back from the afterlife to get back to his body so he could play that one show sort of thing that he's always dreamed of. And while that does play a role in it, it's much broader than that. And through shoving in the kind of buddy formula that all the Pixar movies do, where you have two unlikely friends that learn something from one another by the end. And Tina Fey kind of voices the comic relief character 22, who I don't know, I'm not too mad on. I like the character's arc and role in the story. I'm just not that mad on Tina Fey's whole gimmick, or not even specifically Tina Fey's gimmick, just the gimmick of the annoying side character in an animated movie. It's annoying when they are playing with way more interesting ideas than they used to, but it has to be bogged down with the typical formulaic stuff, but I can't get too mad at that. The way they're able to spin all these Pixar tropes, these animated movie tropes, the way the cat is involved in the story, I thought was even cleverly well done. It's this constant battle of, okay, we have this really out there idea, this high concept, but it also has to stay simplistic enough for the whole family to kind of get through it and enjoy, and it still be a Disney Pixar kids movie. So you're left with a story that works very well on an emotional level and a visual level. And the only real problems I have with it are with the script, really, the plotting, the mechanics of the way this story works and comes together can be kind of convoluted, and the movie addresses it itself, saying that we're trying to explain it by saying that it's all kind of constructs in the main character's head, and that for me is why it doesn't really ruin the experience or anything. There are some aspects to it I just don't understand, such as Graham Norton's character Moonwind, who's like a key aspect of how the main character is able to go from like the soul world and the other world. It's easy to get lost in the details like that, and I was finding some of it quite clunky. On my first watch, it was not nearly as bad on my second. I've seen it twice in the end. Honestly, one of the main things that had me excited for this movie was that Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross did the score. For those who don't know, they were behind the Social Network score, Gone Girl, Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, some of my favorite scores, so seeing that in a Pixar movie was interesting, and it's a really standout score from them in the way it juggles the traditional jazz stuff that they didn't compose. So the soundtrack's kind of split between John Batiste and Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, so the way the different worlds, even in the music, come together is part of the experience, because Trent Reznor's side is obviously very Nine Inch Nails, electronic. The villain theme has that sound that you go to Trent Reznor for, but then on the other side, the free-form jazz goes extremely well with the New York scenes, obviously, fits in with the teacher's character. And then in the last kind of third of the movie, when they start combining with each other, there's the musical payoff too. It kind of has everything going for it that their last movie, there being Disney Pixar. With Onward, I know some people like Onward and it was like fine, I guess, completely middling. But here I really enjoyed the story of the main character and the buddy side character and how they learn off each other, and by the end, they both have very distinct changes to them. It's a movie of great scenes. A lot of people talk about the barbershop scene. One of my favorite standout moments is, well, there's a great scene where the main character has a discussion with, well, not really a discussion, a dramatic interaction with his mother that's very reserved and quiet and thoughtful for one of these kind of big movies. There's a moment in the movie towards the end where the main character remarks about what it means to walk in another person's shoes. And that's ultimately what it is. It's a movie about that premise, about empathy. It's a movie about trying to be a bit less myopic in the way you think, and like with the barber character, who was introduced at a certain point in the story, it's mentioned that he didn't want to be a barber, he wanted to be a vet. And that even though if that might have been his deep down passion, the fact he didn't necessarily achieve that because of the realities of the world he was living in, doesn't make him a failure or less of a person. It's just everyone, it has that constant battle, the balance of their passions and the reality of trying to survive out there. I was a big fan of the Picasso-inspired doodly counselor characters. They were a lot of fun. I just think it was quite a big challenge to juggle these different worlds and distinguish between them visually in a way that still complements each other but doesn't completely throw the tone of the movie off. I don't think it's their cleanest movie, just in terms of the way the story kind of comes together. This isn't quite an Incredibles tier Pixar movie or anything, but I really got a lot out of this movie, way more than I was expecting. You gotta shout out Pete Docter and Kemp Powers, the co-director, for managing to find the right balance of that soul world. Yeah, this is one of their strongest movies for a while. This is a 4-star for me. And the reason I don't sound that confident is because I'm still a little unsure if it might kind of sink down a bit as the recency bias fades, because I am very easily manipulated by these Disney Pixar movies. When it all lines up with the right story, I do quite enjoy what Pixar get up to. Before we delve any deeper, this video was brought to you by Manscaped.com. Manscaped, my favorite men's brand for grooming and hygiene, just released the new Weed Whacker nose and ear hair trimmer as part of the new offer called the Performance Package. As I've gotten older, I've noticed intrusive hairs starting to protrude from my nose and ears, which are incredibly painful to rip out with tweezers. Luckily, the Weed Whacker uses the same skin-safe technology from the lawnmower body trimmer, which reduces nicks, snags, and tugs. The premium Manscaped Weed Whacker uses a powerful 9,000 RPM motor with a 360-degree rotary dual-blade system to safely whack your weeds. Plus, it's water-resistant as well as being the only nose hair trimmer on the market with a cordless, rechargeable lithium-ion battery that lasts up to 90 minutes of use. It's time to upgrade your Manscaped routine with the Weed Whacker. Get 20% off plus free shipping by going to manscaped.com/IHE. That's manscaped.com/IHE. Next up, we have Wolfwalkers, directed by Tom Moore and Ross Stewart, which is from the Irish animation studio who did other similar such films such as Song of the Sea or The Breadwinner. You can find this on Apple TV Plus, is that what it's called? Unfortunately, I think it's kind of buried on there. As you can see, it's only got like 12,000 ratings on IMDb, so it's not really being seen by that many people, but it's a really excellent, small little animated kids movie. But what makes it stand out is this dedication to this beautiful 2D animation, this really rough line work, the colors bleeding off of the lines. It's all very messy, but completely intentionally. There's real control to what they're doing. Incredibly strong storyboarding, composition, this autumnal warm color palette to the scenes in the forest as opposed to the grey, dark, harsh aesthetic of the city brick scenes, because it's a very simple story, the kind we've seen before, about different factions kind of learning the truth about the other side and kind of hiding in these broad environmental messages, and, you know, the kind of affair that needs to be in these mythic kids movies and never bogs itself down with anything that distracts you from the story. It's all character based. I really like the characters. Sean Bean plays the father of the main character, who's kind of in charge of hunting the local wolves who they need to get rid of so they can continue deforesting and expanding their citywide production. And expansion. But yeah, for me this is mostly about the visuals, the art style, the art direction. I can't decide if I like the look of this film or Song of the Sea more. It's all personal preference and you can't really lose either way, but I particularly enjoyed going back to the composition, just the way the film didn't care about breaking certain rules. They really fully use the frame and the 2D space and the freedom that comes with animation to play with the kind of balancing of the frame, like having the city in the background in ways that in reality wouldn't really make that much sense, but because of the style of the movie, it really adds a lot of character to it. The character design itself is extremely strong, the silhouettes are all very recognizable. I've seen this film twice now and it does fly by. If you're not used to this kind of 2D animation where they're like leaving line work behind and just the visual style is a lot more loose, I could understand it taking 10-15 minutes to get used to, but I just feel like it escalates nicely on all fronts. The story builds itself up and builds on its characters and the setups and the story hooks that are set up early on. You get the payoffs, you get the violence and fights and stuff. It just is a really solid movie that I fear is being underlooked because of the streaming wars. If you can get hold of an Apple TV Plus trial or something, or just get it for a month, I'd recommend it just for this movie, just to support it if you like this kind of thing. I just know that there are certain people that if they see pictures from this, screenshots from the film, that there's a certain type of person this will immediately interest. And not just fairies, because there's lots of wolves in it. This is a 4-star for me. I'd recommend most of what the studio has put out. Eurovision Song Contest: The Story of Fire Saga is the 2020 Will Ferrell movie, directed by David Dobkin, who people might know for Wedding Crashers, Fred Claus, and a bunch of Maroon 5 music videos, which I guess explains his involvement in a Eurovision Song Contest movie. So obviously 2020 was the year of COVID, they weren't able to do Eurovision, so instead we get Will Ferrell and Rachel McAdams. So you replace something shit with something even worse. I know this seems like a really random movie to talk about, but I wanted to give Will Ferrell a shot. The last thing I watched from his was Holmes and Watson, so it really doesn't get much worse than that. I want to see if Will Ferrell had gone back to the drawing board. He actually did write on this movie, Eurovision, so see how he redeemed himself with this one. But his movies, they're all the same thing. They're all the exact same thing. It's Will Ferrell doing an accent. Most of the humor relies on the accent and whatever costume he's wearing. I didn't quite realize how reliant he is on those two things. I know Will Ferrell in real life has a Swedish wife, so that probably has something to do with the link to Eurovision, but we all know how much I love the movie Sing, and I don't know, I think this movie might be worse than Sing, actually. Sing probably has more variants. They don't sing the same song over and over again like they do in this one. Now, obviously, I'm never going to go into this. I'm not the demographic for this movie, so I'm just really being pedantic even talking about it in the first place, but I feel like Jesse in Breaking Bad. How does he keep getting away with this? Yet again, we have a man-child, Will Ferrell, playing a character who his job is something kind of gimmicky or out there or strange. In this case, he's a kid whose dream is to be on the Eurovision Song Contest. But this isn't like an underdog story. Like Will Ferrell's character is just bad in the movie, and they're constantly joking about how bad his act is and how he sucks. So then you have this thing where he continuously succeeds despite his ineptitude, which can be funny. That's what makes the dude in The Big Lebowski a funny character. He's not like a capable person, but he's swept into something much bigger than him, and there's inherent humor to that. There isn't much humor to a character who is bad at something, the thing we're supposed to be rooting for them in winning this competition, when you know there's no real good chance that he would ever win it based on everyone calling him bad. So then winning through a fluke is not much fun to watch as an audience member anyway. So then I guess you can say, well, is it funny? I guess if it's funny, none of the logic matters. And I guess that's the biggest crime of them all. These Will Ferrell movies, they're just not funny. Maybe for like a 45-year-old who loves Eurovision, this would be the movie for you. Nothing too edgy, nothing that's gonna ruin your day kind of edgy. It's all very tame, family-friendly, and not in a good way. It does bother me how Will Ferrell is the love interest. At first I thought they were playing siblings, but no. Of course, Rachel McAdams, for some reason, loves Will Ferrell and then has a love triangle with the guy from The Guest. Even going as far as Rachel McAdams is so desperate for Will Ferrell that she just straight up proposes intercourse to him. And he's like, no, I don't think so. Is this what your life gets to be if you're like The Rock or Will Ferrell or something? You're just cast in movies and they put you up against like Rachel McAdams, whose dialogue is how much they want to you and be with you, while you're getting paid like tens of millions to be in these comedies that they make in like a couple weeks. Every time they stumble across something that's a little bit humorous, a little bit funny, there's a nugget of something there, they just have to overdo it. Nothing can be left unsaid. Every joke has to be over-explained. And going back to the Sing comparison, it is so similar, it's so similar and generic, they even do the same thing they do in Sing, where the disapproving father sees their child performing on the TV, so then they're like, that's my son. I would have been fine with this if it was an hour and 10 minutes and it was just a bunch of Sing-style X Factor skits where it's just a bunch of SNL comedians doing their jokes on the corniness and the silliness of Eurovision. It's almost an idea so obvious, so devoid of comedy as a setting, because Eurovision is just so ridiculous and is much funnier as an event in and of itself as opposed to being a comedy. I have a real problem with how long the movie is. Why is it 2 hours long? Why is it 2 hours long? Like, out of the 4 films I'm talking about, this is the longest one. I was actually impressed with myself that I managed to sit through the entire thing. Normally I wouldn't. I guess I was just feeling in a particularly Eurovision-y mood. I just hope you like every one of the most obvious Swedish jokes you can imagine. Rachel McAdams' terrible Scandinavian accent, and Will Ferrell's. I know it's supposed to be part of the job, but these movies just don't work if you're not inherently swooning over the charisma of the main characters. So this is a big stinky one for me. This is a 1 star in my book. Okay, let's end this with Another Round. Directed by Thomas Vinterberg, a director I'm a big fan of, particularly The Hunt or The Celebration. He's kind of known for pretty harrowing dramas. So seeing on IMDb Another Round being listed as a comedy was interesting to me, because it is kind of a comedic premise in potential, that being a story of 4 high school teachers who kind of test this thesis that if you maintain a certain blood alcohol level, then you'll be more relaxed, your teaching will be better, your relationship with your wife will be better, it will just make your life better all round. Now maybe if Ed Helms was the main character and this was coming from Hollywood, this would be like a stupid dumb comedy. But obviously the premise does not come with a inherent drama that trickles out throughout the movie, and it was something I really liked about it, having the 4 different main characters, the 4 teachers, and using them as a way to explore the way humans in general have this really complicated relationship with alcohol, and that's kind of what the movie is largely about. And it's not to cast off the idea one way or the other, yes, drinking's bad, drinking's good. It definitely explores the pros and cons of it, because being a Brit, pub culture's huge, but I think Denmark in particular is known, especially for its younger drinking. I was expecting a lot more darkness from the movie, and it's not to say there is not drama in there, there's a lot. But I guess contrasting it with the other movies I've seen from him, I really wasn't expecting the kind of joyous celebration of life that comes towards the end. It has a real memorable closing scene, which rounds off the story quite nicely, but Mads Mikkelsen is obviously the main character here. There's something about him, he has such gravitas and a really expressive face. The way he delivers his lines and the effortless way he's able to act just really grounds movies and gives it such a relatable, vulnerable focal point, much like how he worked in The Hunt. Obviously the other 3 main characters don't get quite as much as Mads, but they all serve to explore a different dynamic in a different way that alcohol can affect someone's life, because you have the main character who's kind of growing distant from his wife. You have one of the other guys who has young kids and can't seem to have a moment to himself. I just thought the framing was really efficient in exploring the ideas. The only negative I would say that comes with that, though, is having a big group of characters. It can feel like some of them are set to the side, and that their exploration is just inherently less important or interesting compared to what you're getting from that main character. so it can feel a bit rushed or like there are a few scenes missing here and there. And obviously the characters go through some pretty extreme shifts, some more believable than others. And you have to give props to the drunk acting as well. That's always a test of an actor's capabilities. But especially Mads and Thomas Bo Larsen, they really sold me on the spiraling nature of their little science experiment. There isn't too much about the visual stylings of the movie that jumped out at me, and I don't think it would have been necessary to really flex that muscle with a story like this anyway. I like the kind of natural handheld look of the movie because it's mostly propped up by the performances and the writing. The dialogue's very good, lots of memorable lines like "we decide when to drink, alcoholics can't help themselves." And when it does break away from the main characters, it does have a bit more uncomfortable messaging to do with the unspoken rules we have with alcohol and that incredibly grey line of when it goes from being fun to, okay, this is a problem now. As someone with a lot of teachers in the family and also as someone who've dealt with people who've had alcohol problems before, the drama side certainly struck a chord with me. I'm not sure if it's quite as strong as some of the previous stuff I've seen from this director, however, this is one I think people should see. It's good to challenge yourself on innate ideas in society, and it's what filmmaking's for. Telling stories through interesting, relatable characters, and getting you to reflect on your own life and your attitudes towards something as innocuous as a beverage, a drinking beverage. I don't know, I feel like it's almost low to give this a 3.5 star or 7 or whatever you want to say. I feel like my rating's almost too harsh for this, based on how much I enjoy it. Maybe it will go up if I rewatch this. I've only seen it once, so... But for now, I think I'm happy sitting this at 3.5 star. So those are the 4 movies I wanted to talk about this episode. Just a quick update, I'll put it at the end here. I have about 3 different videos I want to make, and I'm kind of struggling to settle on one to just get out. I think I'll do a search for the worst first, though, to try and get back into the swing of things and get a routine going again. But I hope you enjoyed. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. But yeah, thanks for watching. I'll see you again soon. Bye!